I think another one that I haven't mentioned is Jerry Reinsdorf, who owns the Chicago White Sox.
That's right.
The Bulls, and he has been. I can't explain how we have remained friends. I can't understand it.
Wow.
I don't know if it's happened, but it has. And I think he is another one that, from a loyalty standpoint, has built an organization, has built 2 professional sports organizations based on that loyalty being a pillar of foundation for him with respect to that.
That's wild. Welcome to the Whole Student Podcast with Cal Balavant. Whole Student refers to the magical moment when a student is fully seen, heard, and known. This is a spark of a relationship between student and teacher, where the former is catalyzed on a journey beyond what they thought possible, and the latter is a proud advisor cheering from the sidelines. The Whole Student Podcast asks guests to reflect back to their moment, to the person who became a transformative teacher in their lives, and on the journey they were set upon. Our guest today is Grady Hall. Grady Hall is a former baseball player from Noblesville, Indiana, who starred at Northwestern before being drafted 20th overall by the White Sox. After an 8-year pro career, Grady founded the educational nonprofit Score with School, a behavior-based incentive program that partnered with the Chicago White Sox and Chicago Bulls to provide teachers in inner-city elementary classrooms the motivational materials they need to reward positive participants in the classroom. After graduating from Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, he went on to found the strategy consulting group iSpy, which focused on developing internet strategies for brands such as HP, Gap, and Bank of America. He aggressively took up writing as a hobby, which led to both screenwriting and his children's book series titled On the Trail with Seymour Snail, a series focused on promoting outdoor activities. The first film based on one of his scripts, a baseball story called Winter Ball, is currently receiving acclaim on the film festival circuit and seeking distribution. It is my pleasure to invite Grady Hall to the Whole Student Podcast. Grady, how you feeling?
I feel good, Cal.
Yeah,
I feel better after that sounded really nice.
Hey, I want to do you justice. I had to cut back on your bio a little bit. There's a lot there, but I wanted to give the highlights.
Highlights you hit. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Grady, I'm going to jump right into it. Can you take us back to the person you were as a student? What words would you have used to describe yourself as a student?
Restless would be one word I would use. I think I was always staring out the window most of the time. And I think early on I did what I needed to do to get by and did fairly well in school, but probably didn't apply myself as well as I should have early on.
Okay, fair enough.
I was always daydreaming and looking outside and thinking about what I could do when I got out there, which was mainly baseball, to be honest.
Fair enough. Okay, so there was a moment in your learning career when you were a student that you felt seen, heard, and known. Can you set the stage for us? When was that you first felt that?
Well, I think it actually happened in like different stages.
Talk to us about that.
I think most of the time, and I'll talk about Mrs. McNish in 3rd grade, was sort of the first teacher I felt like listened to me. Even though I might be daydreaming outside, I felt like she actually understood the daydreaming side of me. And,
oh, wow.
And didn't dissuade it. She was very much encouraging of it, and I think she thought there was some foundation there that had some sense of knowledge, but that the daydreaming side was something that shouldn't be dismissed, as it was in other classrooms. So
right. What subject did Mrs. McNish teach?
She's in 3rd grade, so she got to teach all of them.
Got it. And so, did you ever stay in touch with Mrs. McNish over the years?
We moved around a lot when I was a kid. We probably moved 7 times throughout my childhood, so it was hard to keep in touch with anybody. We moved back to the town where I was in 3rd grade, which was in Ohio, and ended up, finding Mrs. McNish again randomly. My parents had ran into her like in the grocery store or something, and I think we actually had dinner one night.
Wow.
Pretty interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And did you share with her what you were doing in life? Was she surprised? Was she like, I saw that was going to happen? Or
Well,
What
I
did she
think
say?
it was definitely a happy reunion. Yeah, because it was like great to see her, and she was like happy to see me again. I was probably in seventh grade at that point, so I wasn't
Wow.
that much older where I'd sort of matured into anything of of value. Um,
Wow.
so that part was yet to become. I don't know if she. I have no idea what's up with Mrs. McNish right now, though.
Wow. That's awesome. So you said stages. So you had her way
Yeah.
back when you were in elementary school. What's the next stage of your life? When did you feel
Uh,
that again?
I think high school was a critical stage in terms of my uh, baseball. I
Got
think
it. Got it.
when I met a gentleman named Don Dunker, who was basically a what we called in the day a bird dog. He was a bird dog scout for the Cincinnati Reds. So
Okay.
what bird dog scouts did is they went out into the hinterlands of America and
Mm-hmm.
tried to find talent that probably would not have been put on the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And so Coach Dunk was first the first guy outside of like the school world who was like really showing attention with respect to what
Yeah.
he thought he could be as a ball player. Um,
Wow.
and it was he it's hard to say how I phrase this because he was such a baseball guy. All he cared about was baseball, and I think one of the
Wow.
things that I learned from him was passion. Was not just passion for baseball, but passion for anything that you want to apply yourself to. And
Wow.
he was always on the field. He was always manicuring the field. He was always
Yeah.
hitting ground balls. He was always
Yeah.
finding catchers for me. And I played for him for probably 2 or 3 summer seasons.
Wow.
And I think he literally elevated my approach to the game because
Got
of the
it.
way he loved baseball. And you and I have talked about the key element with respect to love and joy when you apply yourself to something.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
I think Coach Dunk was one of the first ones that, not intentionally too, because this isn't the way Dunk
Huh.
talked. Dunk did not talk about these things in those terms, but
Okay.
just through action, it was so evident
Huh.
that he loved the game the way he did, and it got me.
Interesting. Oh, so I'm curious. Were you in those 2 years? You're
Mhm.
going through this. You're with Coach Dunk. As you see his passion shown in the way in which he's interacting with baseball, were you emulating him? Were you copying him, or was he drawing something out of you, or both?
No, I think it was the latter. He was definitely drawing it out of me.
Okay. Okay.
I, you know, and I love Dunk obviously, and Dunk
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like one of the fields back in Noblesville is named after him, which is great.
Wow.
But I never thought that I would be him. I never thought that I would end up as
Wow.
a bird scout, a bird
Yeah.
dog scout back
Right.
in,
Right.
Noblesville, Indiana. I
That's
knew it was a
amazing.
world and I wanted to see a lot of it. But what I did take from him is what his passion was giving to me. I definitely took that in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Can you share a Coach Dunk story that touches on that?
Um, it's yes. And I think it was we were we were in Fort Wayne, so we had traveled, 2 hours for an away tournament. I was playing up in age. I was like playing with
Wow.
guys 3 years older than I was.
Okay.
And so it was my first big like tournament
Yeah.
being not at home and also being with guys I didn't know and guys that were older than me.
Hmm.
And um, he just called me, put me aside before I went out to pitch, and he's like, "Don't pay attention to anything else." And I was
Hmm.
like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Look, these guys are older than you, they're bigger than you, they're
Yeah.
stronger
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
you. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter."
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and again, it was very simple. Dunk was a very simple man, and part of my message here in this is I talked about I thought about our conversation was the value of simplicity when it comes
Yeah.
to education and learning.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Dunk was such a vivid example for me of that because his whole point was it's as simple as throw the ball, catch the ball. Do not
Wow.
make this more than it is. And ironically, it helped me, like it cleared my mechanism, it cleared my brain,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other
Yeah. Yeah.
bringing into it. So
That's
it,
wonderful. It's interesting because in that story, I'm visualizing it. I'm seeing you for Fort Wayne. I'm seeing all this, and what I'm seeing is Coach Dunk's asking you to focus in, but when he's doing that, he's actually focusing on you.
yes,
That's beautiful.
exactly. And
Yeah,
that was like the first time I felt like he was the one that was placing his bets on me.
yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
so there
Yeah,
there there came after the fact, not during the tournament, but after the fact, there came this sort of responsibility to make sure I fulfilled that faith that he was putting in
okay.
me. So
So, Coach Dunk, in that relationship, you stay in touch. What?
yeah,
What?
we did for a while. Dunk passed away probably like 10,
Oh,
15 years ago.
oh,
He was old, he had a
yeah,
great
yeah,
life.
yeah.
And again, his was a baseball man's life.
Okay.
It was beautiful in that sense. He
Yeah,
did exactly
yeah.
what he wanted to do.
Love
So that
it.
was the other thing that I loved about Dunk is like he was doing what he wanted to do,
Wow, I
which
love
also
it.
had an impact.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, let's take us to the third stage. Who do you have next for us?
Well, I think this next gentleman and friend probably had the most influence on my life uh,
Mm,
than anybody else, and that was my college coach at Northwestern, who was Ron Wellman. Um,
wow.
Ron was it was interesting because he wasn't that much older than we were at the time. He was
Yeah,
probably 33, 34. We're coming in 19, 18 years old.
yeah,
I
yeah.
felt ancient to us at the time. Uh, Looking back,
Yeah.
you sort of understand like he wasn't really that. So I think there was an ability for him to communicate with us. But I think what he did was he taught us so many valuable lessons in terms of what operating within a team means,
Right,
functioning
right,
as
right.
a team, and also breaking us down and building us back up again.
That's right.
Which were great lessons for me to understand, like where you put your own barriers in
Yeah,
terms of what you're able to do, and then how you
yeah.
push through those barriers to become more than you actually probably thought you could be. Um,
Wow.
and a lot of this was through like physical demand. Um,
Okay.
but there was also a component of it that was like reinforcing the team dependency in that
Mm,
aspect. He was always having he was always putting the burden on the folks that probably weren't as talented as the other ones. And so
mm.
we then had to, bond together
Yeah,
and pull together and get everybody uh, through the system, and not just a few handful of people. And I
right,
know you
right, right.
talked a little bit about, the definition of program, and
That's right.
he went on to become the athletic director at Wake Forest for a number of years and recently just
Right.
retired. And so I think one of the things that he has instilled in a lot of his former players who are still very
Yeah.
good friends of his is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
sense of team, is that sense of loyalty,
Yeah.
that I think plays out in any aspect of involvement. It doesn't really matter whether
Wow.
you're a team or not. You are in a
That was
sense.
that's a powerful outcome of the educational experience. You're the first person to talk about that word loyalty and
Hmm,
what it could mean, the implication of that. Yeah, it's powerful.
interesting. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It's interesting because that's been a very strong mechanism for me from
Yeah.
that standpoint on. And I've noticed that the people I have remained closest to throughout my life, there is sort
Yeah.
of mutual acceptance, or mutual understanding of the sense of loyalty without being spoken.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And you learned it it's so interesting. You learned it not just as a concept, but it was embodied. There was a physical
Yeah.
component to it. There's something powerful to that.
Yeah.
Um,
I think a
all right. So
lot of we talk about it, and none of us were, luckily never had military experience, but we would
oh
hear it
yeah.
from fathers in terms of whether they were in the Korean War or the Vietnam War. But
Right.
a lot
Right.
of what we talk about seems to correlate with their experience in the military. And
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
you push yourself
Wow.
through situations with people those
Yeah.
people that are bonded to you for life.
That's right. That's right.
So
Wow.
really,
Wow.
really interesting relative to that.
So you said stages. Is there another stage after college for you in relationship to how your career shapes? We have teachers in our lives beyond school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I had a lot of great coaches when I was playing professional ball that I would say I would take them in pieces and aspects
Yeah.
of their
Yeah.
teaching
Sure.
were great if you put them in a single embodiment of a coach.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I think one of the folks that had the most impact on me probably approached it from a more unorthodox component of it and operated very much from a very like Zen Buddhist application
Hmm.
to your not only your baseball but your life.
Uh-huh.
Right. And we did a lot of and we sort of became kindred spirits because I took to this very quickly. Um,
Wow.
I found it fascinating, not only from an application to baseball. It's like the Zen and the art of archery.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Relative to that, and how that application is is sort of appropriate from a sports standpoint, but obviously has life implications beyond that.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Um, and so
Wow.
Rick Peterson was his name. He was my coach in Double A for a very short
Wow.
period of time, actually, but felt like he was there for 5 years.
Oh my
Um,
God. Okay. Okay.
so
Okay.
it was really interesting. The books we would read, the things we would talk about, how they would apply to pitching. But
Hmm.
honestly, I took that much further and applied it to the
Fair
aspects of
enough.
life.
Give
So.
give give us an example of one of those books.
Well, there's Zen and the Art of Archery is a great book.
Okay. Okay.
The Inner Game of Tennis
Hmm.
is another great
Okay.
book
Okay.
relative to all of this. The opening
Wow.
line, I think, if I remember right, the opening line in the Inner Game of Tennis is that nobody has to face down a saber-toothed tiger anymore. So we
Okay.
have in our DNA, in our makeup, we still
Yeah.
have cavemen
Yeah.
reflexes.
Of
Um,
course.
and it's the fear or flight thing, the fight or flight mentality when you face fear.
Right.
And when you're in sport or engaged in a competition, you either channel that into a positive way or it takes you over in a negative way.
Right. Right. Right.
So being able to control that fight or flight mentality in a competitive sense is powerful. And you
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
you don't let the moment get bigger than you are in that
That makes
sense.
sense. That makes sense.
So that's
Um.
when Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance was
Yeah.
another great book that we
Wow.
yeah.
That's awesome. And unorthodox. I like that.
Yes.
Um. So one of the questions I've asked every guest in the season has been around the folks in their lives and bringing them together. And so the way I phrase it, to acknowledge what you've said is that you have shared parts of your story that's gonna have people reflecting and thinking about the people in their lives and noticing those people in their lives today. And if I gave you a magic wand and you can just flick it and 5 of your teachers in life would just show up to a meal,
Yeah.
who would they be?
I one of which, two of which who I haven't talked about yet are and I'm going to put them in as a single unit, but my parents.
Okay.
I think, you know, I know from a traditional standpoint, like they're not necessarily teachers, but to me, they're the folks that you learn the most from, pro and
Hmm.
con.
Okay.
I think you take a lot of lessons from your parents that I think some of them are taught unintentionally.
Okay.
And my dad, for example, worked for the same company for 47 years,
Yeah.
and unbeknownst to him, I think, and we'll see if he sees this and says anything. But I think he taught both my brother and I the sort of the importance of joy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
finding the importance of joy in your work, because there were definitely times we didn't think he was very happy.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
And he made sure to make us. I remember he sat us down one time, and he came home from work, and you could tell he just had been run through the ringer kind of thing. And he sat us both down in the bedroom and was like, "Look, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you guys are trash men. If you love what you do it." You know, he probably doesn't even
Mm.
remember giving that speech, to be honest with you. But I know it
Wow. Wow.
both my brother and I because from a very early age, the only thing I can remember my brother reading were books about presidents, and he ends up going into politics, and has worked in
Wow.
D.C. for over 20 years now. Um,
Wow.
my passions seem to continue to jump from space to space, but I'm chasing them.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think,
there's definitely, yeah.
and my mom from that standpoint too. I think that gets back to the loyalty thing. I think she was the one that was sort of the anchor of the family, and you were in this family, and you were in your her loyalty to her faith and her loyalty to her family were two
Yeah.
lessons that were just so vivid to us growing.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
think the people that my parents would be at the dinner. I think another one that I haven't mentioned is Jerry Reinsdorf, who owns the Chicago White
That's
Sox
right. That's
and the
right.
Chicago Bulls, and he has been. I can't explain how we have remained friends. I can't understand it. I don't know
Wow.
what's happened, but it has. And I think he is another one that, from a loyalty standpoint, has built
Yeah.
an organization, has built two professional sports organizations based
Yeah.
on that loyalty being a pillar
Right.
of foundation for him with respect to that.
That's
Um,
wow. Wow.
and so he would be there. I'd bring back Dunk. Coach Dunk would be there, and I think it would
Yeah.
be entertaining to have Wellman would be there. And if I could find Mrs. McNish, I would have Mrs. McNish come, just because
I
I want to
love
see
it.
what she's up to.
Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome. I can tell by the smile on your face, the power of these individuals in your life,
yeah,
and just, and the love you have for them, and they set you on a path. And
yeah.
we created this show to inspire young people to notice the teachers in their lives, to inspire folks to think back to those people that had impacted them in their lives
Mhm.
if they're no longer students or they don't see themselves as students anymore. And so it's really touched a lot of folks. It's our You didn't know this, but this is our last episode of season 1, and the
Mhm.
reason I wanted you on this particular episode is that I'm seeing season 2 having a theme come together for me around entrepreneurship. And what you haven't shared so much, a little bit in your intro, is that not only are you a person that pursued baseball, you pursued helping students in schools, you pursued different opportunities that came your way, but you're a person who's taken your creativity and you're out there, you're selling your story, you're sharing it with the world. And the story currently that you are pushing and putting out there is Winter Ball. And could you do a plug here? Talk to us about Winter Ball.
Uh, that's very nice. Thank you. Winter Ball is, well, in its physical sense, it's now a movie
Yeah.
that I wrote and directed. We shot it in the Dominican Republic. It's about a minor league baseball player that thinks he's going to the big leagues, but instead gets sent to the Dominican Republic to find his baseball heart. Um, the Not to give it away, but the movie to me is more of an exploration of a culture than it is about baseball. Baseball is
Right.
just a mechanism through which we tell the story.
Right.
Um, and I ended up spending some time in the Dominican Republic. The people there and the culture amazed me. The joy that
Wow.
they have there for life, their ability to celebrate life despite their circumstances of life,
Mm.
is nothing short of amazing. They are the fastest to party. They're the first to dance. They learn to dance before they learn how to walk there. Uh,
Wow.
and my thesis, I think, in the underlying story of it is that cultural component of it influences how they play the game,
Wow.
and it makes them better ball players because of it. And
Wow.
I think that's why they are probably the best source of major league talent in the world. Um, and there's a
That's
love
amazing.
interest. So, but
That's
it was a
amazing.
ton of fun. I love doing it. I can't think of a more sort of vulnerable or expressive way to tell a story than through film
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
write. It's really fascinating. The business side of it, I'm just now getting into, which isn't a ton
Yeah.
of fun yet, but I'm sure at some point it will be.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but the development of it, to see words come to life
Yeah.
through actors, through characters, it's a thrill. It's an absolute thrill.
Wow.
So,
Well, everyone listening to this podcast, Winter Ball, you got to watch it, right?
yeah.
Grady, I really appreciate you having walked into my life as I've come into this valley, and for being a guest on this show, sharing your whole student journey. I want to thank you for your spirit, your story, your time. Appreciate you much, brother.
My honor, my friend. It's so good to have you in the valley.
Yeah.
I love where you're
Yeah.
headed. The positivity you're bringing to this place, is undeniable. So you
Well,
are on a great road, my friend.
thank you. Thank you. And we'll end by saying, as we have said on all of our episodes this year, class dismissed. So there you have it. We've come to the final episode of season 1. The Whole Student Podcast has been brought to you in partnership with Duncast and produced by JD Scroggin, the Director of Marketing and Communication at the Dunn School, and co-produced by Brandon Scott of Comfort Food. You can subscribe to the Whole Student Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe today. Class dismissed.